It is difficult enough to be successful doing domestic business. Now try to be successful internationally. So I've been trying to push two basic ideas that business people, in order to be successful going global, need to have two toolboxes. One toolbox is global business acumen. They need to understand how doing business in China is different than doing business here because of the regulatory differences, because of geographic distance, because of political differences, and so on. And the other toolbox is the cultural intelligence, the cultural competence, that doing business outside of your own country necessarily means becoming kind of like an amateur anthropologist, because as soon as you step out of America, you're stepping across a cultural boundary, and people don't do things the same when we leave America. Despite globalization, indeed, because of globalization, cultural differences persist. Despite globalization. And one of my students this week, who works for Harris Bank, which is actually owned by the Bank of Montreal from Canada, which happens to be my home country, you would think that the difference between Canadians and Americans was not so large that Harris Bank, Bank of Montreal in the United States, would need to change anything. And yet, what they discovered in Canada, you put a dot on the ground and you say, the line starts here. Canadians, in their perfectly Canadian politeness, will self-cue. They will form their own line. They discovered in Chicago that by putting out that little dot, there's like a rugby scrum, that people are vying for position. And what Chicago is, across Lake Michigan, 100 miles to Canada, and yet there are significant cultural differences necessitating different ways of doing business. And that's Canada and the United States. Now try United States going to India, United States going to Colombia, for example.